Again, we want to welcome everyone tonight, and it's awesome the way these work out to where we can have great Calvary pastors and their wives from all over the country come and share with us. It's truly a privilege. I get to tell our CBI students today, because as Don just hung out with them over there this morning for 3 hours, and I said, I can tell you as a young pastor, to be able to hang out with these guys, that was something I never got to do. So enjoy every moment, and it's such a blessing. Don and Jean have been instrumental in both Marilee and I's lives, even before Marilee and I were married. And it's because of Don and Jean that we have married rooms at Calvary Bible Institute. Because as we were getting together on that first day planning out CBI, Don said, we definitely need to make room for married couples because Jean and I were married when we were in Bible college. And it's been such a blessing for all the young married couples that have come through. And so let's welcome Don and Jean McClure. You each have a microphone here by your chair, and they're going to share first. At the end of the evening, time permitting, we'll take some of the questions that were written. Here's your mic.
Is it on? Is this on? Oh, it is. Hello, I'm Jean. That's Dawn. I thought I would just start out by quickly sharing how we met. When I was in grade school somewhere, I went to a Christian school, and I had a music teacher that said, you can pray for your husband right now. I said, that's ridiculous. I'm in grade school. And she said, he's probably alive somewhere in the world right now. And you could be praying for him. So through the years, every once in a while, I would say, Lord, be preparing him for me and me for him. If I'm supposed to get married, then just be preparing him and me. And by the time we met, we were in college, and we met at church in the college department. And he had come to the Lord and was heading to ministry, and I was heading in that direction too. And it was just, the Lord just put us together. So after I went to youth group and I saw him, I checked out the whole youth group, like 100 kids. And I went home and I told my mom, I said, I saw a guy I think I'd really like to go out with. And she said, what's his name? And I said, it's Don McClure. And she says, I go to prayer meeting with his mother. Why don't you just pray about it? And I said, well, he doesn't even know my name. She said, that doesn't matter. It's like the Lord knows your name, So I went to bed that night, and I just prayed. And I said, Lord, if he's the one for me, then you have him ask me out. We didn't ask boys out in those days. So you have him notice me and ask me out. And if not, then don't ever let him notice me. And it was summertime, and that summer, I ended up sitting somewhere near him. And he started talking to me, and then he asked me to go out. And I fell madly in love pretty quickly. So we were engaged in 3 months and married in a year. But God's good. I always think, when he plans your marriage, he has someone for you then. And if you don't like what he gave you, then you need to just pray about him pouring his love into you for your husband, because that makes all the difference, The Lord does.
I'm supposed to comment on that? Yes.
Do you want to say anything about me meeting
I would like to say something about her. She's awesome. Okay, honey, it's your turn. No, okay, here. I actually, something that hit me as she was sharing that I remembered was that I was one of these guys. I grew up. My mom got saved first when I was in like 6th, 7th, 8th grade, somewhere in there, and she became incredibly, radical right off. She was just full on for Jesus, and everybody in the world needed to know it. She shared it everywhere she went. Incredible boldness. She was really a wonderful witness as I look back, but very embarrassing to a kid when you bring your friends over and you're doing stuff, and she'd have to ask them if they're saved, if they know Jesus. Mom, we're all saved. Come on, it's America. We eat apple pie. We're Christians. All right. Kind of a thing. And I really didn't get it. We had gone to a very liberal church when we were young, and we had Christmas and Easter, and I just figured, well, I'm a Christian, and everybody is. And but then my dad, and I had a brother a year older, brother a year younger, sister. One by one, all of them got saved. I was the last, but I kind of held off because I just wanted to kind of party. In the 60s, it was hot rods and fraternities and parties and, being cool or whatever you wanted, thought you were going to be. But when I was a junior in college, I came to the Lord. And at the time, I seemed like when you're around fraternity stuff, you always have a girl at your side type of a thing. It was part of the thing. But I never was serious really with anybody. I just like girls, I guess. But anyway, which is healthy these days. But anyway, you want to check that box, But anyway, here, but I also just realized that I'm kind of growing, and I just had to really trust the Lord, with all aspects of my life, and so I just stopped dating. I just figured if I'm going to get with the guys, get in a study, commit to the Word and things, and so I'm having that kind of a thing happening, somewhat within my life, and kind of getting things together at our church on New Year's Eve. Should I tell that story? Okay, I'll tell that story. Well, anyway, New Year's Eve, they had in the gym, it was a big church, and they had like 300 in their college group and all that, but they had this big, after New Year's Eve party in the gym and pie and ice cream and all that. And I just kind of walked into a group, and Jean was in the group of people standing around talking, eating their pie and ice cream, and oh, no, I'm not going to tell that part. Okay. Well, honey, we want to get to know each other. It's not bad, it's just... Okay, well, we met that night. That's when she went home.
Just do it.
Okay, very quick. And so we're standing around, somehow or another, the discussion got on what people's father did for a job. Or when I'm in there, they're talking about something, and it came, and somebody said, "Oh, what about Jean? Ask her what her dad does." But everybody's kind of laughing a little. They all knew, but I did a little. What's funny, So, okay, what does your father do? Come on, tell him, Jean. Well, finally, she said, "Well, my father's a doctor." Well, what's the big deal on that? Well, then I push it a little. They said, "There's more," and so I said, "Well, like heart surgeon, brain surgeon?" No, and then finally, well, what is he? And so he's a proctologist. And now I was a teenager. Who knew when you're at that age what a proctologist is?
I really wish my dad had been a dentist. It would have been so much easier.
What?
It would have been easier.
Yeah. Well, he invented tux, if you've ever heard of that. But anyway, we're there. And so I said, "All right, what's a proctologist?" And everybody says, "Tell him, Jean." Well, nobody would say anything. So they noticed that, well, her dad is standing right there. Go ask him. Well, he's in a group of people his age, and stuff. And so I was very bold. And so I walked over, tapped him on the shoulder, and they all stopped talking. I said, "Excuse me, could I ask a question?" And he said, "Yes." He was, doctors, they've got that air about them that's like, I don't know. But anyway, yes. And I said, "Could I ask you a question?" "Yes." I said, "What is a proctologist?" Everybody in his circle thinks it's quite hilarious, too. And he stares at me and he says, "I am a rectal surgeon. Do you know what a rectum is?" I said, "That I know." That was my introduction to the Anderson family. But anyway.
Okay, you're never going to forget that story, are you?
That's all they'll remember tonight. But anyway.
May I just say that growing up, that was just very embarrassing for me. Boys would always ask me what my father did. And they'd always say, "Oh, he's a brain surgeon or a heart surgeon, or he delivers babies." I'd be glad to tell you that. Well, I'm never telling a boy what my father did for a living. He was a GP for years, and then he went back to the Mayo Clinic and specialized, to my horror. But anyway, his patient...
Now you're going into detail.
Yeah, no more detail. I just want to tell a little story before... I want to just say some advice to the guys. Because I'm thinking, what would I want to hear at something like this? And so my sister-in-law, married to his youngest brother, lost her husband a couple years ago from Lou Gehrig's disease. And his brother rejoiced and loved the Lord and said, I get to, in the end, I get to close my eyes and open them and see Jesus' face. And he was just the most godly guy, just wonderful. He met his wife in high school, fell madly in love with her. They dated, got married, and all of his life he just adored her. And when he passed away, eventually she remarried. And she told the guy that she was going to marry. I cannot marry you unless you treat me like my first husband did, because he would tell me, you're the prettiest girl in the room. And he would always make her feel so wonderful. And so the guy said, I can do that, and he married her, and she's happy. And but I was just, thinking that sometimes if we wonder why our wives don't love us or our husbands, it's because maybe we don't adore them like we did when we were dating. And I think we forget to compliment them. And it means a lot. It means a lot to guys and to girls. So that was just my advice. And then I'm going to say one other thing, and then he's got the floor. We have funny things happen in marriage, and we are not perfect. But, the Lord...
But Jean is coming along very well.
I'm trying. But I'm going to tell you how I was not very perfect. COVID hit. We were on lockdown. Remember? Trump locked us down because he didn't know what was coming. That was fine. It shut the borders. All that was fine. But you're together 24/7, which is okay because you can go out in the yard, You could go drive a car a little bit. But anyway, we were doing fine, except for the thing is he was getting grouchier and grouchier with me, and he's not usually that way. And I could just tell I was irritating him. And I'm a little bit, tiny bit OCD, like, let's pick up the clothes, let's put the dishes away, let's shut the cupboard after you go in, and your socks are on the floor, and I'm going to trip on your shoes and kill myself. And he is getting more irritated. She's got quite a list here, doesn't she? And so, I'm looking at all of this, and he is getting more and more quiet and a little grumpier with me. I could just tell he's just irritated. I'm thinking he doesn't like me anymore. So I went to the Lord about it, and I said, Lord, you know what? If he's wrong, you need to show him, thinking the Lord was going to show him. And if I'm wrong, you can show me. You just show me. Do you know what? I got laryngitis. I probably lost my voice for a month. I went finally to the doctor, and they said, you have laryngitis. Quit talking. So then it wouldn't go away. And finally, I called my daughter-in-law, who's an RN, and I said, I can't get rid of this, Erin. She says, Mom, you need to quit talking. That's how you get rid of laryngitis. Then we're on an airplane, and he has a ton of miles with Delta because we fly all over. And so we got bumped up to first class. It was great. And so they served us food. And they even had cloth napkins. It was wonderful. And I bit my tongue so bad, I'm bleeding all over the napkin. The flight attendant was very sweet and kind and worried about me. And I just started laughing. I said, Dawn, first I can't talk anymore, and now I've totally cut my tongue. I said, I think God's really dealing with me. I'm getting the message. So I just, I'm saying all that to say we never stop learning. We don't. And I think we have to be open to what the Lord wants to show us. And so it was a good lesson for me. You're on.
Okay, back to where I was. This was Christmas. She's going to Westmont College up in Santa Barbara. I'm going to Cal Poly, Pomona. And, but so I didn't see her at all. And then I decided, Lord, I'm not going to date again. I'm not going to do any of this until you show me somebody. And we go through, the school year, summer, and I think it was September. I went to church midweek and had prayer meeting, and then they would break up into college, all the groups, different groups for prayer as well. And so I go to there, and there's a smaller group, and I looked over at Jean, and I said to her, haven't I met you somewhere? And she says, oh, that's a good line. I said, no, I really thought I had. And she said, yes, you did. She told me the story, and I said, now I remember, meeting you New Year's Eve. Well, anyway, so I'd kind of made a covenant with the Lord. I'm not doing any of this dating or anything until you kind of show me. It ended up, we're talking about the pastor's daughter, who was a very close friend of both of ours, and she had messed up with her ankle or whatever. wisdom teeth out. Broke a leg with something. No, yeah. But anyway, so well, you want to go see her? And she said, well, yeah, I would. And she says, let me go ask my parents. I'm thinking, you're at college, so you have to ask your parents if you go see the pastor's daughter. And she, I thought, okay. Well, I'll never forget, she walks over to her parents in the prairie and she says something. Her mother, who I didn't know, leans over, she stares at me and looks at her, and there's a smile on her face. I have no idea what that was. I found out later, they've been praying if something was to happen with this. Well, here, men. Dumb idiots were the last to know, Well, anyway, so we go, and then as I'm doing this, I'm thinking, Lord, this is not a date. I don't want to have to start all the way over. I've been really good for like 9 months, nobody, waiting for you. And then now, so I'm just going over there. And so we, go over and see her that night. And then I just knew I had to see her again. And there was a little going back and forth, finding a time to do it. And meantime, here, I'm trying to, get them together, but I still, I had my Chevy Impala Super Sport that, was all decked out. It was a beautiful car. And I got it all washed and waxed. And down in Hollywood, there's on the 14th floor of the Occidental Life Insurance Building, there's a restaurant called Room at the Top. And I called down there, and I got the corner booth there that just looks out over all of Hollywood. And I got this all set up for the, really putting the dog on. And then we're driving down. She was born and raised in Pasadena. And we're driving down and tell her where we're going, Hollywood. She said, I've never been to Hollywood. I'm thinking, never been to Hollywood? And no, I've never been to Hollywood. And then we're going down the road as well. And she said, I know a few things about you. I said, you do? And she said, well, her mother, was in this prayer group and other things. And there was a woman named Lita, who we knew well, who was kind of the girls' counselor for the college girls and stuff in the church. And I'd come to the church, and here's all these girls in the high school group. I'd pick one and take her out a couple of times, then didn't do it again. I'd pick another one and didn't realize this is a small world at the time, kind of a thing and these girls had gone and counseled, well, he took me on and he did, whatever else, and talked to this woman, Lita. And then Lita, when she hears that I had asked Gene out, she goes to Gene's parents, they're very dear, and they said, yeah, and then my sister-in-law, my brother's fiance at the time, she says, you be nice to her. She's the most wonderful person I know. And if you just be really, not as if I was an unnice person, but at any rate, so her parents, this Lita gets a hold of her parents, tells her all these stories about, these girls that came to complain, and they had the church we went to was called Lake Avenue Congregational Churches in Pasadena. And I had this thing about me. I didn't know anything about it, but in the little girls groups or whatever, they called me that my name's Don, the Don Juan of Lake Avenue. So this goes to her parents, and hey, he doesn't get serious. He leans him on, and then he leaves him behind, and he just so Jane, I'm sitting there, and she says, I know a lot about you. And then she starts telling me all these stories. Lita had all of the goods, whatever it was. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, what now, or something. And then she says, there's something I hope of every person I ever spend time with in my life. And I said, what's that? She said that for the rest of my life, I can thank God for the time we had together. And my mind just began to spin. I just began to go through all of these relationships, and I just think there are none of them that I would say for the rest of eternity I thank God for. They were wholesome girls. There was nothing terribly corrupt in my life or sinful, in that way, but it was just I don't know. But anyway, but you could definitely see here's a pretty immature guy that hang on to a girl, then drop her and go to the next one or whatever else, and not be at all serious when they maybe want to. But when I'm sitting there, that night I take her down to the room at the top, very expensive. I found out later I could have taken her to a really cheap place that had just as much a good time with her. Because I was used to a world, boy, you want to impress a girl, you go do that. She didn't care about any of that stuff, anything at all. And we sat there that night, and I fell more in love than I'd ever knew the word meant, than I ever, sitting there talking and sharing and realizing, I'd been around, I dated a girl, her dad started Samaritan's Purse, World Vision, one of them Fuller Seminary's daughter, one of them professors, a whole bunch of these very spiritual people and their daughters and things, and the interchanges and things there, but had somebody that you just realized the conversation was nothing other than about the Lord. And I'd never had that in my life. And I fell more in love, that night than ever. And so.
Just add one thing. He didn't know the Bible at all. He knew about Moses and the Red Sea because he'd seen the movie, The Ten Commandments. And he knew about David and Bathsheba because he'd seen the movie.
Charles Heston was awesome,
So when we started dating, I would tell him Bible stories. And he loved it. And he went out and got a children's Bible storybook and read through the whole thing. But anyway, that was kind of really neat for us.
I knew David and Bathsheba. Saw the movie. I don't know. I can't remember why. But anyway, I need to confess just also. No, I don't need to do that. But anyway, how much longer do we have before we...
You're done.
One of the things, on how people compliment each other, because Jean, to her testimony, let me give it to you very, very quickly, if it's okay. She grew up, she very rebellious. And I didn't get along with her brothers, or steal things from them, and disrespectful, disobedient, all sorts of just selfish, carnal behavior, incredibly so. And finally, though, under heavy conviction, at 2 years old, she gave her life to Christ. And she's walked with him ever since. That's kind of her I'm serious. She just grew up loving the Lord. Well, I didn't know the Lord, and so it's kind of like we were from different parts of the galaxy, or something, when here, God brought us together. And
Well, I just wanted to say that by the time...
Honey, your voice, you want to lose it.
I am actually losing my voice. It's a sign. No, but by the time I met him, he had gotten saved at a Billy Graham crusade. And he was in a guy's prayer meeting, and he was hungry. And he loved the Lord. And a friend of mine said, I hear you're dating Don McClure. He's a good guy. He loves the Lord. And my prayer had been all my life, be preparing him for me as you're preparing me for him. And the Lord really answered that prayer.
Okay. A couple practical things. Did you have a practical things? Oh, you couldn't talk. That was a good one. I like that. But anyway. But one of the things that, that I think is that, I kid Jean. I love kidding her. And I'm a kidder. But one of the things that I did, and we've been married 53 years, and we've never really fought. And we could fight, but we never, when I'm around a lot of marriages, a lot of all forms and conferences and counseling and things, and I could definitely fight. In fact, during your marriage, I probably tried to start a lot of good fights. And come on, put them up. Not physical, but come on, let's, But Jean never would. She would just say, okay, you're right. And that's frustrating because a lot of times you're not right. You just want to fight about it anyway. I'm serious. When you're young and you get married, you got to lead. If somebody has a better idea, like your wife, you're threatened on your leadership, and so you got to make sure that's the most prized thing you got. If I lose my leadership, then I'm done for life. And so and she's much more mature, and I'm just trying to figure things out. And I, would a lot of times jump into stuff and dumb or whatever else. And then she would put in her opinion, and when you'd sit there and think about it, it was right, but now I couldn't accept it. And so it's struggling. And one of the neatest things, when you do get married a long time, anybody have an idea? I'm open to it, but initially, you really, you need to be right. And when somebody just realizes, I don't need to have it right. You don't need to win. You don't need to, and I see these couples that go through with a lot of tensions in their life and tensions in their marriage and stress, and they're almost, going from disagreement to disagreement, and when somebody just looks there and realizes, we want to stop that. I'm going to stop it. You can get into it. Sometimes you see couples that, they can go for days without talking to each other. They're so upset or frustrated and things. And that we've never been able to do because both of us are talkers. And all right, I'm not talking to you in 20 minutes. All right, we got to talk about this. We're talkers. But we, and we tend to settle things. And remember one time we were up in San Jose. I was upset with something. And so I decided I'm going to go sleep on the couch. I go down and I'm laying on the couch, and there's a little light coming in through the shade in there, and I'm laying there, and all of a sudden I realize Jean is standing over me. And I look up, and there she is standing there, and she says, the Bible says you're not to let the sun go down on your wrath. I look at her for a minute, think about it, and I said, I didn't get upset with you till after the sun went down, so I've got till tomorrow night to settle this thing. With it. But she's grabbed her mic. Here we go.
I just want to say, it's important to keep a sense of humor in your marriage. It does help.
What?
I've laughed at him a lot.
Oh. One of these, I'm married to 3 different women. To just get that out. Now, they all 3 live in the same body. So I never know which one I'm going to meet when I come home at night, which makes it interesting. No, I'm just kidding. She's the most consistent person I think I've ever known, truly. And when somebody is just a lot of stuff, what's your favorite thing? In 100 years, it won't make any difference? Or she'll said that a lot. Some go in there and it seems stressful or whatever. She says, 100 years won't make any difference. And that's so... I think another thing quickly, while she's thinking of what something she might say, is that I think sometimes we get married thinking it's our job to change the other person. And we're there we complement each other. We need each other. We balance each other out in a very real way. And we're always trying to change it. There's the old saying that women marry to men, thinking they'll change. And they don't. And men marry women thinking they won't change, and they do. Now, I don't know what that means. I've always thought it was interesting. But anyway, the thing is, we're always trying to change each other and fix each other, with it many times. And when we look around and just realize we're there for each other. I happened to grow up in a family where my dad was a strong disciplinarian. He, was... he was. His dad, you could tell, was too. And my dad, I don't remember ever raising his voice. And he was a guy that never threw stuff, never lost his temper, never slammed a door. But he was a man, when he'd say something, that was it. He said, go clean your room, and you didn't clean the room. It wasn't like, I'm warning you. No, that was it. You didn't go clean your room. He helped you clean the room using yourself to clean it with. He was that was just it. He was a disciplinarian. That was there with his boys. I used to wonder, how can you raise boys and not raise your voice? But he never did. He was just a disciplinarian. Jean's dad was as well, but not to her. She has 2 older brothers that he was very much a disciplinarian. But Jean's dad said, I don't think I ever disciplined her. And Jean says part of that is because I was kind of afraid of him because he was pretty strong with my brothers, but he just adored her. She adored him. And so there was never that. Well, we get married, and Jean, now we have 3 sons who have a ton of energy, and Jean couldn't discipline them, to me. She maybe thought she did, but they could wrap her around her finger, and I'm traveling a lot. I've been doing a lot with helping to plant churches, doing that almost weekly on a plane someplace, just get me home for Saturday night, so I'm back in church Sunday. And here's the law, here's the rules, guys, here's the thing. I come home, nothing happened. Jean was supposed to hold him to it, she couldn't. She wouldn't. They'd wrap her around. And so that was one of the areas, probably one of the only thing that we ever kind of had issues with, because she wouldn't discipline, and seemingly to me. And then we go back, and and so one time I went over to her dad, and I said, Dad, I need your help. I need your counsel. He said, what, And I told him, here's the thing. I leave, and I sit down with the boys. I said, here's the rules. Here's what you're going to do. Here's what's going to happen. And then it's all going to. And then Jean, she won't discipline him. She just they wrap her around, they manipulate her, and with it. And I need some help. I need you. And he looks at me for a minute, and he said, Don, this is an area I think you need to go it alone. I said, what do you mean? He said, I don't believe Jean can. I do not believe she can. She is, she's just grown up. She's so loving. She's so caring. She's so tender. That now to ask her to have a role that she has never really had an experience with. But that's why you're there. You're the law. And you need to do that. But she probably won't be able to help you. And for some reason, that just lifted it all off me, because I was trying to change her. I was trying to, you need to do this. And as soon as I realized that, I realized, Dad, you're right. She can't. And the wonderful thing is, they've grown up. This is long ago. They love her like crazy. They're constantly, they're so incredible. They hate me, but they sure, they're incredibly close. But no, when you just look and realize sometimes we're trying to fix somebody, in a marriage. And that just, and when you sit there and realize, Lord, am I there to fix them, to make them like me? Or am I there to compliment them and help fill in what they're not? And I think that can be a great relief for somebody when you look at life that way. And you look at marriage, you're helping, you need a helpmate. Somebody there to come along. And when God put Adam to sleep, and then he opens up his side and he takes out a rib, he wakes up, part of him is gone. How that all worked and stuff, I don't understand fully, but he looked there and he realized it, and he looks at her and he says, behold, she is now bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. She is the rest of me. It's there. It's in another body. And things that I'm not, she is. And things that she's not, I am. And instead of trying to make two the same, to realize we're there to complement. And sometimes we get stressed.
I tried to discipline those boys.
Now you boys better do it. I'm going to really. You want some ice cream?
One time, one of them.
They think it's hilarious to this day.
I said, you took a cookie and ate it. And he said, no, I didn't. And I said, okay. And Don's looking at me like, look in his mouth. He just lied to you. So he was really good at picking that up with the boys. But I tried, but he was really a lot better at that than I was. Okay.
Psalm 127, except the Lord build a house. It says, except the Lord build a house, they that build it labor in vain. Except the Lord keep the city, the watchman waketh in vain. In vain you rise up in the morning, in vain you stay up late at night, in vain you eat the bread of sorrows. But the Lord giveth his beloved sleep. But here is just laid out, except first of all the Lord build a house. In vain. You build it's in vain. In vain you're going to rise up in the morning. In vain you're going to lay down in bed. In vain your life is going to go by, and you've wasted all of this energy. You get two people right next door to each other. They're both building a house. They got the housing in, the furniture in, the landscaping in. They're paying the bills. They're doing all this other stuff, and the houses look the same. But except the Lord is building the real home, the spiritual home, unless the Lord is doing that, it's in vain. It's just one day it just vaporizes. It's gone. But he also said, except the Lord keep the city, the watchman waketh in vain. In other words, here there's two things. He says, the Lord has to build the city in the first place, but then he has to keep it. He has to maintain it. And many people, that's a maintenance thing. That's a continuous, ongoing thing. Some of you, you get a house and you go in and you clean it and you got to clean it again a few days later. You're always constantly, there's projects, unending projects. You may have had a house that was just a beautiful, gorgeous home 20 years ago. It was just built, it was in better homes and gardens or something. But at the same time, if he's not keeping it, if it's not being kept, it's one thing to have it built, but if it's not being kept. And the Lord, unless we're letting him keep our lives. And to me, I was with the students this morning, and one of the students asked, what do you think is the most important advice you would give to somebody, heading out into ministry? I said, well, the most important advice I would give to anybody, regardless of ministry or their call or whatever it is to realize, number one, where's the Word of God in your life? Is it something there where every day you have a place for it? Job said, I desired your word more than my necessary food. We get up every day, we need food. But Job would say, if I'm not getting the word from God, I need that more than my necessary food. And that we look there and we need his word. And one of the things that we've done for, our lives is the word of God. We read through it every year. And then you go through it again and again and again. And he's always got something there. Sometimes you read it and maybe not get a whole big chunk out of it. And sometimes you do. Sometimes I'll read it and I think, that's good. And I'm looking for something, don't think. And then I'm with somebody hours later or during the day, something comes up and all of a sudden, hey, so I was reading this morning and something jumped out of me when you're just talking to me right now that, and that you're in the Word and prayer, that you're just prayed. And one of the things that my mother, she had Alzheimer's, and of course it did, but she was incredible about it. She had this incredible love for the Lord, like few people I've ever seen. Since she got saved, she was one every day. The Bible was out like 4 or 5 in the morning. Get up to go get a drink of water, go to the bathroom. There's my mom. She had her Bible. She had devotional books. She had prayer lists. She had all this stuff before anybody got up, and she had that out, and she's going through it. And as she's doing this, I could see that from a little kid on, and all I knew is my mom's really fanatical about this, in a sense. But then, but she and my dad, through the years, every day they would get up and pray, and there was 57 at the time, I think, descendants, and they would pray for everyone by name. And after they, would read and pray, and it was just the way their life was, and with it. Well, my mom, as she gets Alzheimer's, one time she wants to talk to us. She gets us together, sits down. She said, I need to tell you something. And Mom, okay, Mom, what's that? And she said, well, I'm losing my mind. Well, Mom, everybody, your mind slips and you forget. No, I know I'm losing my mind. And I prayed about it. And I asked the Lord, am I losing my mind? And the Lord said, yes, Carol. Her name is Carol. She said, yes, Carol, you're going to lose your mind. And then she gets this vision of this vine tree. And she sees this vine, and the Lord puts his fingers around the vine at the base, and she's showing this, telling this like a little kid who'd open up a Christmas present. She's excited about it. And she said, the Lord put his finger around the vine, goes up, and as he pulls, all the branches come in as he goes up the vine. They come in, all the leaves fall off the vine. And as the leaves all fall off, and then he lets it go very top, and there's just some leaves left at the top. And she said, now, Carol, these memories, all the leaves, they're your friends, your family, your loved ones, your memories. You're going to lose all of them. They're all going to go. But, Carol, I promise you, the leaves at the top, they're me. And you will never lose me. And so she's there. She says, she's excited. She says, so I want you, I'm going crazy. I won't make any sense. I'll repeat everything. She knew with it. Her mom had Alzheimer's, too. And so we're kind of... In fact, Jean, a while back, she says, you got to tell me if I'm getting Alzheimer's. I said, I've told you 3 times today already. We got to enjoy getting old if you're going to do it right, But anyway, or did I tell you? I can't remember. But anyway, so my mom, she's thrilled. And about this and she said, and But as he's telling me this, and she said, I won't make sense. I'll go crazy. I'll repeat myself. But don't worry about me. I'm just fine. Jesus and I were just fine. Well, then, of course, she does ultimately lose everything, doesn't know anybody whatsoever. We'd go visit her and go sit down, and who are you? Mom, I'm your son. You're my son, yes. And what's your name? Don? Oh, that's wonderful. Now, what do? I tell people about Jesus. Oh, that is so wonderful. You tell people about Jesus. We talk about it for a minute or two, and then a minute later, now, who are you? My name is Don. And I'm your son. You're my, and then we go through it all over again. Then we'd sit there, and then we'd pray with her before we go. She'd bow her head, and she'd pray, and she'd name us all. She'd be praying for us. She didn't know me sitting next to her. But it was like this incredible realization between the spirit that's been fed by God and the soul that's just an organ. The mind, it's just an organ. It goes, weakens. But when somebody has the Spirit and they're filled and they're filled and they're filling, and here she could sit there and go through all of this list and didn't even know we're the one she's praying for that is sitting right next to and who we were. But when somebody looks there and just realizes, all of her children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren always wanted them praying for them. No matter what they go through, call her up. And my dad, both of them. Pray, but when you're in the Word and you're praying. Last word. You. Oh, question. Okay.
We got a few questions. I think forget how important it is to laugh. And laugh with each other. And it really carries us through the hard things in life as well, to be able to laugh about it. And I love the part, it's not going to matter in 100 years. And so often the things that we get upset over now, it really doesn't matter, does it? So, and the part about when you're young, you have to win. So, you can be right or you can be happy. I suggest you be happy. All right? Here's one of the questions. How did you balance your time to maintain a healthy marriage? Marriage, family, ministry, etc.
Well, when we first got married, he was at Calvary Chapel, after a year, after Bible school and everything, we came home, and he was so busy. And we had our first son, and he was just gone at the church all the time. And I struggled with that. And I just thought, it was the middle of the Jesus movement, or the beginning, and the hippies were pouring in, getting saved, and it was incredible. But I found, because I had a little one, I was at home a lot. And it really bothered me. And I went to my mother-in-law, and I said, he's just gone so much, what do I do? And she said, she really had tears in her eyes. She said, I feel so bad for you, but the Lord's telling me you need to praise him for this. And so I went home, I got in the car with our son, and I just said, Jesus, I don't want to praise you for this. I don't think it's right, but I will. I'll just praise you for it. And then later I just realized that that's what the Lord had called us to, and I got used to it. But the thing is, the Lord spoke to him, and I remember one time he was teaching, and he said, the Lord showed me one day that if I didn't have a marriage, I did not have a ministry. And the Lord showed him that if I don't spend time, we had 3 boys, and later he said I would lose all my boys. So he went out and he got a camping Volkswagen, camper, and we went camping with those boys. And to this day, they're in their 40s, one's 51, and they would say it was the best times of their lives growing up, that we just had to get away from all the ministry and the people and go camping and spend time with our kids. So that's how we worked it out. You do have to spend time together. It's just important, so you have to plan it.
I think that, there's this whole traditional kind of a, priority thing. God first, your marriage second, your kids, your ministry or church or, work or whatever things that people have, and these are the order. And I don't find that so much in Scripture, clearly, things. I just find, to me, that there's God's will for your life. First of all, to be filled with him no matter who you are and where you are and what you're doing. And that relationship obviously comes first, and sometimes when you are when you're raising a family and you got all these things around you to do, the Lord may just say to you right now, one of your, like with me at times, that boy, he's first. You go spend time, you go do it. And so it's not like to me, a lot of times he'd move the order around. It wasn't something that you kind of go down a list as much as, the different, times, whether your career or the finances or, kids or your marriage and stuff. But in the sense that we need to, work on this or that, we're always working on them. They always are ongoing things, in life and building. And but I think that what it is that when you would sit before the Lord and say, Lord, what relationship right now is important to you? What are you speaking to me about the relationships in my life that are not where you want them to be and as you want them? And I believe he'll show us. And if you're not sure, ask your wife. She'll help you. Ask your husband. I'm serious. I mean, I say that tongue in cheek, but I mean that. When you would look there and say, what do you think? You're my helpmate, with it. And what should we be thinking about and prioritizing maybe at this time or maybe season or at this particular time? And talk about these things together, about what do we do? I mean, the thing is, one day you realize, I grew up in one home. I had these same friends through grammar school and through high school and through fraternity life. And they were my best friends. And here we get married, and these guys took priority over the marriage. I didn't realize it so much at the time. We're both finishing up our senior year. I was carrying 24 units, going to 2 different colleges to finish, and I'm working as well. And I had very little time at all left. But I had 2 nights that were free, that I could adjust. And I was spending them playing handball, with some guys that I'd been playing handball for a long time with, and sand volleyball. And here Gene is, home alone, wondering, what's going on here, with this thing. And we actually one time had a discussion, because I'm kind of upset because she's watching me go out to be with my friends. But all the time we were dating, she knew I did this. Monday night I played sand volleyball. She knew that. It was no surprise. I didn't change anything. And then we get married, and now where are you going? And she's kind of upset. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, why are you getting upset? You knew this. And but the Lord spoke to me, and he says, your priorities changed the moment you walked out that aisle, and you said, forsaking all others, I pledge thee my troth. That means you now move ahead of everybody else in your life. She is now number one. You forsake them all. And now that relationship, you develop that. And so when you look there and say, Lord, what are the priorities you want at this time? And build them.
So the next question is, what married couple had the greatest influence on your marriage?
You. Who was you?
Well, there were several, that we watched. And Alan Redpath and his wife, we watched them. And they were so sweet. And his parents were just madly in love all their lives. And his dad went off to war, and she didn't know if she'd ever see him again. And he was in the Philippines on a ship. And she didn't see him for 18 months. She had a baby while he was gone. And I always thought they loved each other because they realized early on they could lose each other. And so there were great influences in my life, in marriage.
I would say those same 2 couples, the Redpaths, had a huge impact. But also my parents, they dearly loved each other. And my dad was an oil man, and he'd be in Oklahoma and Texas and different places in the oil fields. His office, he had a business partner in L.A., but he had to travel a certain amount. But he'd leave early in the morning to the office, maybe before 7, and then sometimes whenever he got home sometimes long days. But my mom, the way our kitchen was, we had a garage in the back. The driveway came down, and the kitchen, you could look right out the kitchen, see the car come in. And my mom, no matter what she's doing, preparing a meal or whatever it is, as soon as that car came down the driveway, my mom stopped everything, went out to the car. My dad would get out, and they'd hug and they'd kiss every day, stand there for a few minutes. And she'd probably pour out her heart, or what her 4 kids did that day. but you saw this couple that you just realized how much they loved each other. And I'd say that was a great thing.
Right. Well, we'll take one more question here publicly. And when pastors talk at marriage retreats, there always seems to be a sexual bias. Assumptions that the man may have been the one who is unfaithful, or the man is the unbeliever, or the man isn't forgiving, or the man has a temper. So why is that?
Because it's true.
Yes, me. Well, in 100 years, I'll be fine. Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. No, I just want to say in that, I think women can be a problem too. Because we're living in an age where women work. And they meet guys at the water cooler. And they're sick of diapers and laundry. And so if this guy's flirting with her, maybe she gets attracted. And I've seen so many problems with women in this day and age doing that also, and walking out on a husband and kids. So to me, it's kind of a two-way street these days and in this world. And to realize that you need to cleave to each other and love each other and not have eyes for anyone else. Because, I've seen this happen, and the guy doesn't marry the girl. I had friends like that, and she's alone. And it's a sad life. And I've talked to those women later in life, and they said, if I'd have worked on my marriage, I could have kept it. And they didn't. So you can speak to the man, but I do think it's a two-way street.
Well, I think on one hand, we always have a case on the other person. I've noticed, there's I guess I maybe did this. My fingerprints are all over it, but it's because something there. We're masters at shifting the blame. That, of course, that started in the garden. Here Eve. On one hand, it was the one. She ate the fruit. She was the one that was deceived. She was the one that carried on the conversation with the devil, and she did it. And I would think any decent attorney could take that to court and probably feel that they would win until they took it to God's court, where he said, no, that's not how it is, because he didn't come looking for her, he came looking for him. Adam, where are you? And here I gave her to you to lead and guide and care, and you have failed in this. It's called the Adamic sin, not Eve's sin. And, we ask a woman to change her name, address, phone number, future, purpose, identity, everything to follow us. And then sometimes it just sit back like apparently Adam did and just let things unravel, right under their nose, rather than realizing I need to maintain this relationship and to lead it well. And I'm not saying, on one hand, I tend, maybe just because I am a guy, that tend to see things more as that the man is our failure, on things. And not to say that it's always that way. I don't think it is with it. But to start there, I found that the Lord doesn't really fix the other person as much as he fixes ourselves. When we can look there, and if you're a wife, that you said, what did I do? What's my part in this? And because here, after, God came looking for Adam, Adam immediately shifted the blame. Immediately, he looked over and he said, wait a minute, it is the woman thou gavest me. And right there, he looks at her, I'm really not sure what happened here on this thing here. It's the woman who thou gavest me. This is between you two, not me. It's something. You made her, you gave her to me. Obviously, she's flawed merchandise. So you go work this thing out, with this thing, shifts it over, and he looks at her. She then says, well, I'll try it myself. She says, it was the devil. The serpent came in here, and she shifted it. And I found nothing ever gets fixed when you shift the blame. But when you look there and say, Lord, what's my part in this? It may be 75-25, it may be 80-20, it may be now and then 100-0. But oftentimes there's something where both can look there and say, forgive me. And let's get fresh on this. Let's start fresh and ask the Lord to forgive us and move ahead. Lord, we thank you, Lord, for this incredible gift. Lord, to look back and I realize all these friends that I grew up with and all these guys that we literally, took oaths together and went through Hell Week together and said we'd die for each other, and all these sorts of things that you go through trying humanly to build these long relationships, and one by one they all go away. And others come and go in our life, but Lord, to have each other and to realize I'm not growing old with them. I want to grow old with you. I want to grow old joyfully. I want to grow old peacefully. And whatever it is that serves us, let's deal with it straight on. Let's rejoice in you. Let's rest in you. Let's seek you. And Lord, I just pray for any marriage here that right now is dealing with stress. Don't sit down and communicate. They let the things build on day in and day out. And one day they're mad and don't even know why anymore. And they get a root of bitterness there towards a person. They don't even know why they're bitter anymore. Lord, I pray that you'll just help root that out. And Lord, that there would be a peace, there would be a hope, there would be something they could look. And if they need to come in and see one of the pastors and sit down and say, we want to start fresh, help us. Help us, we want to clean this slate. We've got a lot of just trash here. Help us clean it out. And Lord, that we can keep a short list, short things, Lord, with one another, that we can rejoice and we can be happy, truly have a joy in life through all the responsibilities, all the difficulties. There's already enough trials out there when we look at the whole world. But Lord, we pray that you would help us to have something deep and precious and intimate of sharing each other's life, that one day we couldn't even begin to describe ourselves anymore without talking about the other, without talking about our other self, the rest of who we are. And so, Lord, strengthen and bless each marriage tonight. We ask your blessing on it. In Jesus' name, amen.